Hey, this is Alicia from Party Radio. I'm speaking with Crispin Freeman, the voice of Zelgadis and Alucard. So, probably the first question I would have is, how did you get into voice acting?
Well, I started as a voice actor. I actually started as a theatrical actor. I was working as a theater actor in New York, and I was at a summer theater festival up in Williamstown, Massachusetts, Williamstown Theater Festival. And a friend of mine there caught me watching anime. And he asked me if I liked it, and I was like, yeah. And he said, I work on English dubs in New York. Would you be interested? I said, no, the English dubs suck. I don't have anything to do with them. But then I realized that all the shows that I had watched when I was a kid, whether it was Voltron or Battle of the Planets
Transformers
or Robotech or whatever, was all dubbed.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I wanted to get into it because that was my introduction to anime, and I wanted other people's introduction to be as good as possible.
Yeah.
And there was a show coming down the pike that I really wanted to work on, so I called him up and said, sure, sign me up, let me get started on it. And so
but it wasn't that easy for the rest of us.
Yeah. So he put me in touch with the studio, and they said, you have a demo tape, and I was producing a radio theater company at the time.
Yeah.
And so I sent them a copy of one of the radio theater plays that we had done, and they eventually called me in, and they had me audition for a couple bit parts on Slayers.
Yep.
And I got those, and that was sort of fun. And then they said, yeah, we got this blue guy covered in rocks. Interested in playing him? I was like, oh yeah, the blue guy's kind of cool. I could play the blue guy.
I know him, yeah.
Let me audition for him. And so then I was lucky enough to get Zelgadis, and then it just took off from there.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I first saw Zelgadis, he was a bad guy, I think, but we saw just bits and pieces of Slayers with just whatever we could rent from the local store. And I don't remember Zelgadis too well, but no, we do. We have the entire set at home. But yeah, he's pretty well. So probably the next question is, what's your view on Zelgadis, since he's probably your first biggest role, right?
Yeah, Zelgadis was my first big role, but of course I came in halfway through the first season of Slayers. So Daniel Cronin had played him in English before me, and had been a very different type of Zelgadis. And when I first auditioned for Zelgadis, I'd actually gone out and listened to Daniel's performance, and I thought they wanted to sort of match that. So I did my best to try to be close to what he did, and the director looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, what are you doing? Do your own Zelgadis. I was like, okay. So I did my Zelgadis, and the thing about Daniel's performance that I didn't understand was why he was so sort of
monotone. I found him very, very monotone.
I had to say a little vacuous. There was no there. And I thought, Zelgadis has got a big axe to grind. He's really upset. He already had issues before he was offered to be turned into, to become stronger by Rezo, and so he's already sort of spiky, and then you give him metal hair, and it gets even worse. So that for me it was there's a real sense of sort of superiority. He's Oscar the Grouch. I mean, he is sort of the
Oscar the Grouch of the anime world.
Yeah, and that's sort of his purpose in the quartet of Lena, Gallery, and Amelia. Is he's supposed to be sort of the grouchy, practical one.
He's the one that puts in his occasional say, or the I don't knows.
And that's sort of, and yet he keeps hanging around with them. You people annoy me, but he always hangs around with them still.
Yeah.
So that to me was what Zelgadis was about, and I thought he had a lot more passion in him, frankly.
Yeah.
What Daniel had done.
Okay, well, probably the first role I ever saw you in, and a lot of people first saw you in, was Alucard. And I love Alucard. I think a lot of people do. Like, if you don't like Alucard, there's something wrong with you, right? But I wanted to know, like, when you first started doing Alucard, did you actually check out Hellsing before? Or was it just kind of like, oh, this character looks really freaky?
Well, what happened with Alucard is that I had just moved from New York to Los Angeles, and the director who I had just met and sort of become friends with, we were talking about the show. And he had seen, I'm not sure how much of the show he had seen, but obviously they had the first volume. And so he was trying to put together the cast for it, and it was really important to him that he get honest to goodness British people to play the British characters.
Yeah.
And Alucard was really a challenge because he wasn't so sure about it. Georgie Nakata had done a wonderful job.
Yeah.
But Townsend wasn't sure that he wanted to do it the same way. one thing he wanted to make sure of is that when Incognito finally shows up in the storyline, he wanted Incognito to sound like he could kick Alucard's butt.
But Incognito wasn't even in the manga, so a lot of people got really confused with the anime if they had read the manga before.
But in terms of just the voice acting, the casting, the point was that he did not want it to. He wanted to sound like Incognito could eat me, and that's not how it is in the Japanese, if I remember correctly. Incognito
I believe he has a very low voice, and he seems like he's bored with his entire life.
But I don't think he's lower than Alucard. Like, I think Joji actually sounds more bald than Incognito. And Carlson wanted it the other way around. He wanted there to be actual danger that Alucard could get eaten by this thing.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why he wanted. And he looked around. He auditioned a bunch of people who had, really dark, deep, low voices, but they weren't.
Castiano?
No, they didn't. They weren't thinking correctly. They could sound deep and dark and scary. But Alucard, we talked about Alucard, and he said, "What do you think Alucard's about?" I said, "Alucard is incredibly bored."
He is. He's very bored with his life.
Incredibly bored. He's this aristocrat who spends all of his time with these plebes who have no sense of culture, and none of them can fight with a damn. He's so desperate to find a playmate.
Well, several times he says, "I want a good fight."
Yeah.
And he's so excited when he gets to fight it in Incognito.
Yeah, and other than that, and he's just a twisted bastard. And so when the more we talked about it, the more we felt like we really thought the same about the character. And I think that's why Townsend was excited about having me come play him. And we tried him in a bunch of different ways. We tried him with a British accent, and it didn't sound right. Something was off. We tried him with a Romanian accent, sort of try to go more Transylvanian.
Yeah.
And Townsend was like, almost, but I don't think we can go there.
No.
And so he's like, just make him very sort of proper, educated American or mid-Atlantic, and I think that's the best.
Yeah. Okay, well, probably the biggest question on everybody's mind is, what about the new one, the new Hellsing OVA? Have you seen anything, or have you heard anything of it, or?
I have seen clips. Animation clips. I know that at last Anime Expo last summer, they had a big Hellsing OVA presentation. I'm like, oh, did you see it? Did you see it? I was like, no, I had my own panels I had to take care of, so I didn't get to see much. And the only things that I've seen are video clips online.
I have the first episode on my computer if you want to see a little bit later.
Oh, cool.
Yes, it's very amazing.
Very nice.
Alucard's very snowy.
I have not heard anything in terms of the production. I don't know if I'm coming back yet as Alucard.
I heard that, this is just a rumor, don't quote me, that they're trying to get Victoria Harwood back, who was in Tigra. But I think it's probably pretty hard because they're not American actors. I think they're British, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all British. Victoria's British. Most of the cast were honestly Brits or Scots.
Yeah.
And I think most of them are still in the LA area. I haven't seen them.
There's a huge petition up that fans have started to get you back as Alucard.
Gotcha.
It's got about 5,000 signatures on it now, I think. It's really nice. I signed up, so
nice.
I'm just all happy.
Good. So I haven't heard anything yet, but hopefully I will hear something, and hopefully they'll want to bring me back.
Okay. Now, probably one of the questions I had is, do you find that there's a difference between the voice actors in, say, New York area, LA area, and then even Canadian voice actors like Scott and Kirby? Do you find that their attitude towards it has changed, or you just go in it looking differently?
I have to admit that I'm not going to be as knowledgeable about the Canadian stuff. I can be very knowledgeable about the New York stuff because I actually work there, so I feel like I can sort of speak with authority about the New York scene, at least the New York scene as it was when I left in 2001. The Canadian stuff, I don't listen to as much because I just don't have time.
Inuyasha?
Well, everyone's like, have you seen episode such and such of Inuyasha? I was like, look, I get the show. It's, Monster of the Day. I like Rumiko Takahashi's work. It's very nice. I don't have time to watch every episode of Inuyasha. I'm working on my own stuff. So I don't know how the Canadian stuff works, and I haven't heard